Here I'm joined with Salford City striker Marcus Dackers. Marcus, how are you?
I'm all well. I'm all well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So I'm just going to ask you a bit about your career. You've done your career so far, where you've been, a bit about you yourself as well. So you started your career, around City and Brighton. Just
Mhm.
talk me through how that was with being around Premier League facilities and stuff like that. What it was like at these clubs.
Yeah. So I was at City from a young age. I left there when I was 12 to join Brighton. And they're both very good setups. They both quite similar philosophies in how they want to play football. Very technical. They want to teach that from a young age. And then the facilities were both of the clubs were unbelievable. So I went from City. My last season there was when they went to the new training ground there, which was like fantastic for us young lads. We walked in there and we couldn't quite believe what we walked into. And then same for Brighton. When I went to Brighton from the amazing facilities at City, wasn't much different. And I thought when I was there, I probably took it for granted. But looking back, it was a great setup at both of the clubs. Brilliant coaches and yeah, great facilities.
So obviously Brighton and City as well, but we'll focus on Brighton first of all. Brighton
Mhm.
have smashed it in the league this season, didn't they? And qualifying for Europe. Was that always like an ambition at the club while you were there, or was it mainly just surviving relegation in the Prem? And did you ever really get like a look in the first team?
Yeah, so at Brighton, I would say to everyone, it was the foundations were set up from when I first arrived. From young, from I arrived in 2015, and even from there, they'd just been promoted to the Premier League from the Championship. The summer I arrived, and I could see that it wasn't a team who just wanted to basically just call themselves a Premier League team. It was a team that wanted to be in the Premier League and make a lot of progress as quickly as possible, but in the right way. It wasn't just let's spend a lot of money and just hope we can stay up. It was we've built the foundations, and we're gonna over the next few years just keep making small progressions, and that's what they've done. It's not a surprise to me because when I was at the club, just everything was just right. The people they employed to work with the players, the from the scouts to the head of the recruitment to the coaches, everything was just right. And the club had a really good feel good factor about it, and everyone sort of knew where they were heading. So to me, yeah, it's not a surprise that they've done what they've done this season. It was always going to happen. It was just a matter of time, really.
Yeah, obviously, as a Everton fan, it's a bit jealousy there. The way we've spent our money, it's
Yeah,
it's not great. But if we just focus on Man City here, obviously
Mm,
just won the treble a
yeah,
couple of weeks ago. Um, Once again, was that always a factor at the club? Winning trophies, be as successful as possible. And
yeah, yeah.
obviously, we know they've spent loads of money, but have they always been a club that have wanted to spend that wisely, or have they
Yeah, so
just
that's
been throwing cash at stuff and hoping it works?
so City's my team. I support City. I was there from a young age, so I've carried on supporting City my whole life. And for me, it was always yeah. Even from when I was there, 8, 9, 10 years old, it was always taught this winning mentality, and I feel like even when I was at a young age, there was almost so much pressure just to win every tournament you went to, everything you was involved in just had to end in a win. And that was sort of installed to you from 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And it was just ran through the whole club. So when I first joined, it would have been around 2008, 2009. I started getting involved in the club, which was when obviously the takeover happened. So I didn't really see it from before, but ever since the takeover happened, it was all about winning. And obviously, there's a lot of money spent, and there's a lot of money spent in the academy, a lot of different age groups. But that's kind of how we have to do it these days to get any kind of results. But yeah, it's just always about the winning mentality at City when I was there.
Yeah, we've seen obviously the players come through the City Academy. Phil Foden being probably one of the best examples in recent years. Obviously, his mentality has been one of the best I think we've seen from a young player in the Premier League. But
Yeah.
when you were coming through at City, obviously, if you weren't getting much of a look in, how did you deal with that and stuff like that?
Yeah, so for me, I was never really near the first team. To be fair, it was a long way to go for that because there was such a big gap from where I was as a player in my development to where Brighton were in the first team. So it was never really gonna. I don't think it was ever really gonna work out at that moment in time. And they spent a lot of money on the age group below me. Obviously, not Evan Ferguson. Now they brought him in. They brought in a lot of young talent, and it sort of just for me, it was I sort of knew. It never really came as a surprise. I just knew it was gonna happen. To be fair.
So obviously, after you left Brighton,
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong. Once again, you went to Salford, was it?
yeah.
Yeah. So how's it been at Salford so far? And obviously, what's your ambitions in the future with Salford?
Oh yeah, so I went on a couple of trials to be fair before I went to Salford, then they didn't work out, and then I managed to join Salford 2 off seasons ago now. Basically 2 seasons. This is going into my third season. But yes, I've really enjoyed my time there. I've not really been there too much at the club. Like I've been involved obviously a lot, but I've been out on loan quite a bit. So it's been like I'll say this is my third season, but it doesn't quite feel like I've been there for that long. But I've really enjoyed it, and the club's been good with me. They've really pushed me in my development. And they've sort of done what's best for me and what's best for them. And they've always put my development first, and it's a lot of influences there that have tried to help me and push me in the right direction.
Obviously, you're speaking about your loans there. The one that's the closest to me, Chester.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's safe to say that was where you sort of probably hit your best form goal scoring around the first team, if I'm right.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I went Staley Bridge before and I had a good goal return there, but I feel like for the level, I've obviously the national law for Chester, I was 18, 19, probably, I feel like from looking back, it's probably where I made most of my development as a young senior player was probably at Chester, but yeah, because I was at Staley Bridge first and scored a few goals there, then I went back to Salford for a month, didn't really get a look in, and then that's when I went back up to Chester for my second loan.
Yeah, obviously, Chester were just barely off their targets last season. Obviously,
Yeah,
losing in the playoffs. But when you were at Chester as well, obviously, I've been speaking about your ambitions,
yeah.
and the club's ambitions. But what were the ambitions like at Chester there while you were there?
So to be fair, obviously, when I joined, I knew Chester was a big club, and obviously wasn't in a great position when I was there. So to be fair, we did have the ambitions of trying to make the playoffs when I first joined, and then it almost, I feel like we just got very unlucky in a lot of games, and then it sort of, took a turn for the worst, and then ended up becoming almost like we have to stay up now. And that was kind of like I think a reality check for the team. And then obviously we managed to mathematically stay up with a couple of games left. So obviously the mentality of the club was always to be pushing for promotion, but like I said, when I joined, it just didn't. As a team, we were very inconsistent. We'd have an unbelievable performance, and then the next week we'd lose, and it just couldn't quite hit form. But for the size of the club, it was always about trying to get promoted. It's just like I said, when I joined, we couldn't quite reach the heights we set out.
Yeah, and obviously, I remember one of the Chester games we won. I think it was 4-1. I think it was the last home game of the season when you were there.
Yeah.
And I think the fans, play a massive part of what Chester is about.
Hmm.
Obviously, it's a club that's been reformed from
Yeah.
obviously what happened in the past. But just talk to me about how the fans were with you when you were at Chester.
Yeah, they were great. I couldn't have asked for a better set of fans. They were always, encouraging me. I didn't get off to like the best start, but I feel like we warmed to each other. Me as a player and the fans, obviously as the supporters, and we towards the end of it, I had a really strong connection. And when I had to leave, I was very upset. I was very sad. I really wanted to, especially when Chester were playing last season. I was always checking up on them, and that was also part of the fans because if there wasn't much of a connection, I wouldn't have really been checking up. But I was always after my game would finish on a Saturday. The first score I'd check would be the Chester score to see how the boys had got on. So the fans played a real part for making me feel welcome at the club and making me feel like one of their own. So it was a special connection when I was at Chester, between me and the fans.
Last season,
Yeah,
I think did two loans, was it? One at
yeah,
Woking, one at
2 loans.
Southend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
So just talk to me first about the one at I think was Southend first.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously my loan at Chester obviously managed to give me that platform to, step up another level, and then I sort of thought that I was going to have a few options in the National League, and I really didn't. If I'm being honest with you, at the start of after my preseason with Salford, there was nothing really going on. It was the only options I really had on loan were National League North, and then Southend basically took a gamble on me. I'd say in a way, gave me a month loan and just said, all right, kind of let's see what you've got. And then I couldn't really ask for it to go much better. I scored on my debut, got an assist, and sort of played, just was hit good form. I ended with a few goals, a couple of assists, and like I played about 6 games, I think. So that really, it sort of really boosted my confidence, to know I can play at National League and I can compete against, the likes of the Wrexhams and the Chesterfields, and it gave me, for that point in my career, it gave me a big confidence boost, and I really, really, really enjoyed my time at Southend. It's just they were going through a difficult period off the pitch, and they ended up with a transfer embargo, so they basically had a transfer ban, and it meant, because my loan was only for a month, it meant I couldn't extend it till January. We were supposed to extend it till January, but we couldn't because of the embargo, which was, was a real shame.
And obviously that was what led to your loan move to Woking. How was that for you and your development?
Yeah, so I went back to Salford for a few days, and I went back out to Woking. And that was another one that was massive for my learning. I was going into a team with a very different play style to what I was used to. It's very high pressing, a lot of energy. And I'd probably say I struggled a bit at the start to get used to it, and then I started to get improving that aspect of my game, and then scored a few goals, but probably not as many as I would have liked, not as many as I've scored on previous loans. But I feel like I did play a big part in helping them achieve their playoff finish. It was unfortunate because we got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, like Chester, which was, it's an awful feeling when it happens. You always feel like you do all that work for the whole time you're there, the whole season, for nothing, because it's just, it's just the season's done now. Everyone's like, see you next season kind of thing, and it's a tough one to take. But as far as my loan at Woking, I really enjoyed it, and I feel like I learned a lot whilst I was there, and I played a lot of games, more from the bench than starting. But it's all about, these loans are all about learning from the different experiences. So I was happy that I managed to get another unique experience at Woking.
And obviously we've been speaking a lot about you, but someone who hasn't seen you play, how would you describe your style of play and your best attributes of your game?
So I say my best attributes, and when I'm at my best, would probably be my link-up play, being able to switch it up. I can do the channels at times if needed. I can come to feet and link play. So my finishing, I take pride in hitting the back of the net, taking my chances. I say I'm a threat in the air. I'm with the ball at my feet. I say probably my top attributes, probably being able to mix up my play, link the play, and being a threat in the air.
Obviously, we're speaking before about Brighton and City.
Yeah.
Obviously, two teams that, like I said, did really well in the Premier League last season. But if you were to predict how they would do in the Premier League next season, obviously Brighton with the balance of European football, losing McAllister, maybe losing Caicedo.
Yeah.
How do you think Brighton will get on next season?
So I think Brighton, just because I've seen it sort of countless times, now the recruitment is just unbelievable. It's probably the best recruitment I've seen. I don't think them losing big name. You have to remember, these McAllisters and Caicedos, we're speaking of them like they're big names now, but Brighton got them for a couple mil a year ago, and they were nobody. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go and then they just bring in a couple nobodies and turn them into superstars like they did with them. So for me, I feel like they'll get another top 7 finish. I can see them finishing 7th again, I reckon.
And obviously, Man City, like I said,
Yeah.
won the treble a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure Jack Grealish hasn't slept since. But how do you reckon City are going to do next season? Because obviously they have got that pressure now of retaining all 3 titles, potentially the 4th as well, with the Community Shield. How do you think they'll deal with, not the pressure, because I know City don't feel pressure as much as many teams in the world, but how do you think they'll do next season?
I think there's plenty more years of dominance coming. I feel like we'll win the Premier again. I don't know about the other cups, but the Premier League, I just feel it's just like it's a different ballgame. I feel like with City, it's so like, because we seem to always have a pretty slow start, and then everyone sort of says, "Oh, they're struggling," and then as soon as you see City hit that form, it's about 10-15 win run, and it's just the Premier League's just over. So I can't see City not winning the Premier again, to be honest.
Well, obviously they had a tight run with Arsenal, and in the last few years, I've been keeping eyes on the City scores as an Everton fan, just to make sure Liverpool don't win another Premier League, because that's what I'll never hear the end of. But if we move back to Salford now, how do you think they're going to get on in the league next season?
Oh, it's a tough one. I don't know where we'll finish, but I'm hoping we're around the automatics. I really want to. I feel like, was it so? The first season I joined, just missed out on playoffs. Second season I've been here, just about made the playoffs. So now it's next step after that would be either get promotion from the playoffs. Ideally, we'd rather get promotion from automatic. So I feel like we have to be pushing for the automatic spot, and I don't see there's no reason why the club can't do that. So yeah, I'd say hopefully we can finish in the automatics.
Obviously, you've played for a number of clubs in your time, and
Yeah.
played in a lot of different leagues. So that means you played against a lot of players.
Yeah.
Who do you say is the best you played against?
The best I played against. If we're talking academy players, I'd say Musiala. Yeah,
That's a big name.
yeah. If we're saying academy players, it'd be Musiala without a doubt. Because when we was at City, we used to play against Chelsea when we was younger, and to be fair, he looks quite tall. He's got that quite tall and slim build now, but when he was young, he was very short, and like he was always the smallest guy on the pitch. But he just had the unbelievable feet, and his feet were so fast. So I say academy would be him. National League North, I'd probably say was that if I would play that Nick Horton. I thought he was very good. That would be the National League North. Who I thought he was a good player. And in the National League, I'd probably say Ruben Rodriguez for Notts County, but I think he's left now. I think he's leaving.
Yeah, that's fine. You've still played against him, so
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I thought he was a good player when I saw him. So, but overall, out of all the players I played in academy days to now, and I think another academy player who was very good when I played against. I don't know if you heard about him, but Lewis Bate. He was at Chelsea. I don't know where he's now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I was really young, it would be Musiala. If you're talking about big names now, it'd be Musiala. But I played against him when I was like 12 years old. But actual playing against and at his academy level, actually no. I'm like now my memory's coming back. Now my memory's coming back. So I used to be a midfielder actually when I was under 16. And the best player I played against when I was up against him would have been Yunus Musa.
Yeah.
Do you know Yunus Musa at Valencia?
At Arsenal, yeah.
Yeah. So that if I have a final say now, it'd be him, because playing against someone like actual just man marking and playing against them for full 90 minutes, he's without a doubt the toughest I've probably come against, and I think it was under 16s when I played him.
And we spoke there about players you played against, but what about the best players you played with?
Played with. So best players I played with. So when I was at City, would have been Joe Hodge and James McAtee. So Joe Hodge he's at Wolves now. I don't know if you heard about Joe Hodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best I've probably played with at a young age. He was unbelievable. He had a couple. He'll be a Premier League footballer without a doubt. I've no doubt about that. He'll be a top level Premier League football. Like he just had a couple unlucky injuries. So if he stays injury free, he'll definitely make it to a top Prem team. And then McAtee, he just had a decent loan in the Championship. He should be back at City next season. He was always very good from young. And then at Brighton, I'll try and move club to club. To Brighton, it probably would have been easy. Yeah, Evan Ferguson.
Yeah.
He's something else. For his age, he arrived at 16 and he's the most complete striker I've seen for his age group and just in general. Like I always say when he was at 16, 17, he was ready to play Premier League football. Then he was unbelievable. And then if you want to non-league at Chester, the best player of the time was probably Declan. Deck.
Yeah. Very basic. Just a bit of advice for anyone, coming through in an academy or facing rejection. Or
the cliche one is always believe in yourself, but that probably has a deeper meaning of like when it is just you and no one else is really giving you the opportunity. It's just always believe in yourself that when the opportunity comes, you will make the most of it. And then as well, just if you do face rejection and times get tough, always think about why did I start playing and why did I want to be a footballer, and think about the people that you can potentially make proud, and that hopefully that can keep you going. And that's what kept me going when I faced rejection was the thought of getting over that hurdle and then making the people around me proud. And by doing that, you got to believe in yourself. So that would be it.
Right. Well, thank you, Marcus, for the interview there.
No problem.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, thanks for listening. All the best for next season as well.
Cheers, mate. Catch you soon.